Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's team meeting. It's Friday. And with the team meeting and the team meeting podcast, we don't waste your time, so let's get right into it. So first, housekeeping. Amazing news. The team meeting podcast is a real thing now. I have a link only for Apple Podcasts so far because they're the only one that's approved it. But soon I'll have a link for Google and Spotify and iHeartRadio, and I'll go for Amazon if I can. Amazon Music if I can. And so you'll be able to listen to me on the podcast, subscribe. I'll still do the videos though, but I would really appreciate your support as a subscriber because this gets the podcast noticed. We can grow the community, have more people who are getting help and laughing along the way, just from another group from us as we learn from each other. So I really appreciate your support. So 2 things I'm thinking about before we get into our topics. One is, are you talking to yourself more now in COVID? Because I am. I literally am pep talking myself my way through my day sometimes. Sometimes I hear myself saying on the inside, I'll say, you can do this. You can do this. And it was really true with the podcast because there's so many things I didn't know how to do. I don't know how to do recordings. I don't know how to use music with my voice and time it so that it sounds decent. I didn't know if podcasting could be my thing because I didn't know the details of what it took to put something out there in the world. Man, so I had to you can do this, Tara. You can do this, Tara. I said that a lot. And then just the other day, I literally out loud had to say, you are going to CVS because I have to pick up an antibiotic because I'm getting my teeth cleaned next week and it's required as a pre-med. Too much information, but you know me, I'm an oversharer. So I take that antibiotic because I had foot surgery less than 5 years ago. Yes, I had hip replacements and foot surgery. With the foot surgery, I have a metal plate in one of my feet because I had this horrible bunion. Anyway, when you have foreign objects or foreign materials in your body, like titanium and such, you need, for at least 5 years, to take some sort of pre-med when you go to the dentist because you don't want to you don't want an infection to get to that part of your body. I overshared a lot, right? Anyway, but someday I'll talk about the foot surgery because I not only have hips replaced, but both my feet have been worked on for bunions. Serious work because the surgeon said he'd never seen feet that bad. He hadn't seen feet that bad in a long time. I didn't take it personal. I decided not to take it personal. I did need work. It hurt for so long. And then after that, cycle instructor. It doesn't matter how many fake parts you have in your body. Apparently, I guess I've proven that to be true. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the topic is a funny. I went to college at Arizona State University, and I stayed at home during college, so it's a little bit lame, right? I drove to the parking lot like a loser instead of being in the dorms and just taking a skateboard or riding a bike. So it didn't stunt my growth, I'd say. It probably was more fun to go to dinner with your with your schoolmates. I came home and I spent a lot of time in the library when I was on campus because I had to work really hard to keep my scholarship. But I did end up leaving the state for 10 years. So it didn't stunt my growth or it didn't stop me from being adventurous. So I did make up for it by leaving the state and coming back. Anyway, I had a friend in one of my classes. His name was, maybe I shouldn't say his name, is Miguel. I've already said his name is Miguel. He was like 6'5" or 6". He was huge and handsome. He was from New York, came to Arizona, go to college, came to the West Coast for the first time. He always talked about it, not exactly in a positive way, because, there is a big difference. Anyway, one night, he calls me and says, hey, do you want to study? Because we have biology class together. And I'm so excited because I'm studious. I have to keep my scholarship, and I had to get a 3.4 grade point average, which is high. And so, hey, somebody want to study with me? I am game. Let's do this. So I said, yeah. And so then because I lived at home, and that's why I said I'm telling this story. I left a note. This was before cell phones. I'm olden. Anyway, I left a note from my parents and I said, going to study at my friend Miguel's. They knew I was a good girl. I was a very good girl. So me telling them a note is just letting them know where they can reach me. And I left his phone number, because that's what you do when you don't have a cell. You leave the phone number where you can be reached. Can you believe we live like that? Anyway, let me get to the point. So I get over to Miguel's. We're chatting and catching up and all that. And all of a sudden, it's around 9:30. He starts turning off the lamps. And then Arsenio Hall came on. So it was really late night TV starting to come on. And we hadn't even started studying. And so then he turned off Arsenio. And then he turned off the last lamp. And I'm thinking, how are we going to study? I can't see. How are we going to see? Miguel had a different agenda. He had a different agenda. I was not aware of Miguel's agenda. I was an innocent girl who just wanted to study and keep my grade point average high. Right at the time where I think he was about to bust a move, the phone rings. I look over at Miguel and his face goes white because there's still a little bit of light in the apartment. He hadn't completely busted a move yet, so there was still a little light in where we were. But I could see his face change. He looked terrified. And he didn't say much, but he was like, 1 minute. And then he handed the phone to me. I'm like, why? I ain't getting no calls at your house. This your girlfriend? We came to study. What my grade point average? It was my dad. It was my dad. My dad saying, hey, what you doing? I was like, I'm studying. He's like, are you studying? Yeah, I'm studying. Okay. I'm calling to check on you because if you're not studying, I want you to come home. It's late. And I was like, okay, I'll come home. I was just in shock, so I thought, okay, I guess I got to go home. Well, Miguel, the phone hung up, and Miguel said, you got to go now. And he basically told me to leave because my dad had scared the out of him. So I look back at that story and I think, what a dad. He just knew in his heart this guy was going to make a move. I thought we were going to get good grades on our study. I thought we were going to get good grades and kick butt on our biology exam. He never invited me over again. I think Miguel just probably had a different agenda. He wasn't really into studying and realized that he picked the wrong girl because I was Miss Studious. Funny. I never had a conversation with my dad about that either. He's long since passed, but it is a funny story, and dang it, I love that he did that when I look back now. I love that he did that. Gosh. Anyway, let's move on to today's topic. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that later. I like to keep the meeting short, so I'm just going to say 2 topics. First topic is about love. We talked about this last Friday. I'm going to talk about it again. Just a couple of points. The pandemic has probably exposed so much vulnerability in the relationships that we have with our mates that we're partners with our children, with our family members, with ourselves. It's exposing it all. Maybe a good reason to notice what COVID could be showing you, even if it's painful. Because here's what's happening. It's forcing some people to deal with relationships that were already at risk or already unhealthy. And if you spend that much time with someone, at some point you might need to tell your truth. And I say might, but I really mean you do. Here's an example though. When you're dealing with life in terms of a virus that is killing people, and you have one way you want to live your life and one way you want your kids to live, and you want to say no to a party invitation to your family, but you're afraid they're going to get mad at you. This is an example of love I'm talking about. So if you're saying yes to things that you think are unsafe for your family because you don't want people to be angry with you, that's a love issue with yourself. Do you love yourself enough to protect your family and say, you know what, that's not right for us, but I'm not going to judge you for that being okay for you? Or if you're in the house or, and I'm not advocating people leave their husbands or wives or partners or anything like that, but if you find that the truth about how there is a lack of willingness to confront issues is showing up and making you be the person who's making all the sacrifices, and and not having a voice, even if it's to kind of like set some boundaries. That's my nephew in the background, probably heard him. He's on Fortnite because he's done with school now. We'll interview him later. He has a busy schedule. Anyway, notice it, because love not only is applied to others, but you got to apply it to yourself. And if there are people who questioning your decisions and you're afraid to say this works for my family or this works for me, that you need to really think about that as a way of a checkpoint. Are you loving yourself? Are you showing that you matter? Are you showing that you matter? Because that's a way to love your life, when you show that you matter, and you can say very kindly, I understand what you're saying. I cannot do what you're asking me to do because that doesn't work for me. And be done with it, because no can be the final answer. We talk about love on Friday. So I want you to think about boundaries you can set. And when people say boundaries, many people get confused by that. Boundaries just means you say, this would be the way I prefer for things to go. And if the other person says, I disagree, then maybe you find a middle ground. But you do state what you want. And don't be afraid to say it. Loving yourself is it sets the tone for everything in your life. The way people treat you at work, at home, in your relationship. So I want you guys to notice that we'll keep talking about that. That is an agenda item that we will never stop talking about. Love. Second agenda. Okay, doing hard things. I talked about weariness on Wednesday. I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit here just for a few minutes to say we are doing hard things. So if that requires you to give yourself a pep talk and say, I can do this in the middle of something that's tough, then do it. Do you need to ask someone for some help? Like, I don't know how to do this. Could you help me figure this out? I'm so tired. I'm so weak. I'm so sad. Because there's so many people who have loved ones that are passing away in the hospital, sick, in and out of hospitals. It's stressful. But you can do hard things. You have made it through 2020. So do you need to ask someone for some help? Does someone need to help you come up with some solutions? Does someone need to go for a socially distanced walk with you, 6,000 to 7,000 feet apart? No, I'm exaggerating, of course. But you need to believe you can do hard things, because you already are doing hard things. You have made it through 2020. We only got like 3 weeks left of this thing. You've made it through the pandemic. I'm looking at the clock here to make sure that we're not. And giving into things because you don't feel like doing it because it's hard is different from saying no to something because it's emotionally or physically dangerous for you. So when I say we can do hard things, that don't mean you need to battle out a bad relationship where you're being abused emotionally or physically or financially. I'm not for that. I'm not for it. So you're not going to hear that from me. You're not going to hear that from me. But what you will hear is you need to make sure there's a difference between, and you only can say this, giving into something because it's hard, because resistance does not intimidate us. That's our motto. Or saying no to something because it's dangerous physically, emotionally, or whatever. That there's a difference there, and I think it takes some work for you to figure that out. But I want you to consider it. We need to close out now. So what we've talked about is loving yourself, setting boundaries, and we've talked about doing hard things. And we also talked about my daddy, may he rest in heaven, I love you, Papa, who called my date. I didn't think it was a date, but called my study partner and said, back up, partner. I'm going to need you to take several seats away from my daughter. Oh, my God, I love it. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast today on Friday, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I love y'all, and I love that y'all are giving me feedback on what we need to discuss, because we're in this together. Even if we have different circumstances we're facing. Okay? I'll talk to you on Monday on the Team Meeting Podcast. I'm Tara Lynn. Bye.